Eddie and I had the chance to sit down with some of the painters from the world-famous Eavy Metal team to see how they painted the models in the new Armageddon box set.
Here are the highlights. We are joined by Tom and Connor to talk about painting the Armageddon box set for the new edition of Warhammer 40,000. Guys, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Right, when you embark on a project like this, how do you start? What are the first kind of decisions that need to be made before you dive in and start painting something like this?
It's the first thing we generally look at is setting the tone for the project. So we knew we wanted to set as an Armageddon. We knew we wanted to kind of have a grounded, realistic, kind of gritty approach to this. So we looked at a bunch of reference, looked at what we've done before with Blood Angels, with Orcs, looked at the history of all that, and then looked at it and go, how can we modernise that? How can we make this fresh and new and exciting for people?
It's about establishing the colours after we've kind of used the background and the history and the goals of the box to inform our decisions, and then decide how we want to represent each side of the box and apply everything that we've gathered.
And you were saying when you approached this, you're very much considering it as an entire project. It's not just a Blood Angel project and an Orc project. It's a cohesive thing. Like the Armageddon box, the theme of Armageddon needs to kind of stand up in its own right.
Yeah, we're telling a whole story with this box about the battle between the Blood Angels and the Orcs in this bit in particular, so we want to convey that in all of our painting, reinforce that.
It's also because usually when we do a release, it's an individual faction, so they're very much on their own, but this is a product that has two things in it, so they have to work harmoniously and bounce off of each other.
So from a layman perspective, I would have thought that we know what Blood Angels look like and we know what Orcs look like. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process, what you're looking at when you're sort of examining how you're going to approach them differently then?
I think for me, it was with starting from the core principles of each faction. So it's like with Blood Angels, it was like these are artificers. They take a lot of care in their appearance and detailing their armor. So it's like, how can we reinforce that on this project?
Yeah, sure.
And the Orcs, you had a slightly different angle, right?
Yeah, the character of the Orcs is that anarchistic, warband-like attitude they have. So we knew that we wanted to get a full spread of cloth recipes and different colours across, so they look a bit more ragtag. They speak to their narrative and their culture. And similarly with the skin tones as well, having a slightly varied hue and value to each of them, so they feel like a varied race.
You were saying that the skin tones are a little bit different maybe than how the skin tones in the existing heavy metal Orcs have been done. Talk a bit about that.
They're slightly more naturalistic in this iteration of the Orcs to reinforce that development sculpturally as well. So they're slightly less saturated, slightly lighter, and they've got a bit more of that natural variation within them. We made an effort to continue through blending fleshy tones on the elbows into the ears, around the nose, making the lips really dark. So that you get all of those visual hooks that you would get from natural creatures and humans and animals that come through and make them feel like real believable entities.
But because obviously they are Orcs and Orcs are quite varied, they still sit quite happily alongside the existing heavy metal Orcs. So if in your own collections, your own painting, you could have some darker Orcs, some lighter Orcs, some with more naturalistic skin tones if you wanted to, and that'd be fine.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I never considered that level of nuance for Orc flesh.
And you were saying that the Space Marines are a little bit different maybe than how we've approached doing Space Marines in the past. The heraldry is a bit more bespoke, perhaps?
Yeah, it was very much a choice of theming them within the campaign. So these guys have been in the thick of it for a while, and they've picked up personal heraldry as they've gone through, honour markings. I think the Intercessor Squad is a really prime example of that, where some have got a single black trim, some have got two black trims, the Sergeant's got the inlay gold trim. There's also a choice to align Space Marines of how we've shown them in the artwork for a lot of time. You see them like bedecked in text and scripture and all these personal markings, and it was lining those two up so they feel like the artwork come to life as well.
And there's a hierarchy to the heraldry, isn't there? Like the Intercessors, while they are bespoke and each one has like slightly different knee pads or shoulder pads, they are still on the lower end of that. But then you look at something like the Captain, which has a huge amount of heraldry, and you were saying that was one of the more complicated ones to paint.
Yes, it's definitely a hierarchy thing of like, especially because we have the Vanguard vets as well. We want a nice like smooth transition as you go through the range, and the Captain is the pinnacle of that. Every angle of that model when I was painting it was like, how can we express his character in that? So he's got the gold skull on the knee, all the freehand text on the shield and stuff, and then the cape was a throwback to the old third edition Codex cover, and referencing that, and that took a whole day of just freehanding that text on there.
It looks beautiful though. The result really speaks for itself.
Thank you very much.
So, in contrast, the orcs obviously, they're the opposite of like artifice and care. They're ramshackled and things, but you've still put loads of amazing details and like the checker patterns and the dags and all that sort of thing. Can you talk about how you approach that?
Yeah, so there's a real great fun to paint in the orcs, which is that you can infuse all of your models with the checker patterns, with the dags, with the glyphs, with the iconography, and it never has to be quite perfect. You can always add your chips and your scratches to hide slight inconsistencies, and then once you've painted them, you can go over with washes of Agrax Earthshade and Nuln Oil to really contextualize the fact that these aren't perfectly painted symbols on their armor.
And probably never cleaned once it's put on, right?
Exactly. They're not going around wiping all the dirt off of their checker patterns. There's many ways to approaching painting things like this, especially the checkers. You'll find some people draw a whole grid and plan out each little square. Some people will paint one square and then paint the next one kind of diagonally and just do one by one.
You've got to have quite a lot of trust in yourself to do that.
Absolutely.
Which technique did you use?
I went the checkerboard pattern for sure.
Solid.
I like to plan out things like this so I know I've got the right size of square on the surface that I'm working with.
It makes sense. I look to the decal gods to give me those checks on the transfer sheets.
I really like the basing scheme on a lot of these miniatures. That
really stands out.
Yeah, this is a new basing scheme that was designed for this project, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was again setting them on Armageddon. It was like, how do we describe that world and that setting? So we employed a lot of use of the crackle paint to get that like parched desert kind of vibe, and then we glazed in a lot of oranges specifically. Then it ties into the Blood Angels because you get the oranges and the highlights, so it unifies that scheme, and then it contrasts very nicely with the greens you get in the orcs. So across the whole box, everything pops off the basing.
It was fun to talk to the miniatures designers. We spoke to them previously, and they talked about the sort of the rock formations that you see on Armageddon. You see in particular on like the librarian, the weird boy, the captain, and the war boss. And you've used like little basing elements. There's lots of skulls, which obviously are like peak Warhammer 40,000, but other sort of little bits of, I guess, slate to sort of just bring some of that to the other bases as well.
Yeah, it's to blend it in, so especially when you get the sculpted rock. If it was just on its own, it would feel a bit siloed, but how like blending in with the little bits of slate, and then we use little bits of coconut hair for all the little tufts and twigs that are poking out between all the rocks.
Is that what it is?
It is coconut hair, yeah.
Nice. It just looks so natural and realistic. I really enjoyed. Eddie and I had the chance to, when we did the unboxing, we got to then sort of look at the Eavy Metal models up close, and the way that the sort of the little tufts of sort of coarse grass and then like the rocks poking through and everything all just looks really natural and realistic. It's great.
We used the basing to inform a lot of the weathering as well, and this speaks to the narrative of the two sides, kind of reinforcing that the way that the dust and the weathering is collected on the Blood Angels compared to the orcs, that they're slightly different. You'll see that it's absolutely built up in the legs of the Big Mac Dakar rig and the War Track as well, whereas it's a bit more subtle on the Blood Angel side.
You can imagine that those ones have been out in the waste for some time, whereas the Blood Angels may be cleaned between
a chapter serve gets the job. Yeah. I like the fact that it's subtle though. You can see sort of some around sort of the boots, I guess, of the Space Marines and the lower parts of the greaves, but it's not too heavy.
Have you guys got favourite models, favourite paint schemes in this box set?
I think favourite model-wise for me is definitely the new Intercessors. It's still that core kit that we've seen for a while now, but it's the personality that's been imbued into them. You've got the guy throwing the grenade, the guy with the combat blade, the guy with the Auspex. It's like has that kind of classic tactical squad kind of vibe to it, and it feels like each one is also a little individual hero as well, which is what Space Marines are, right? And then on the other hand, it's probably the captain as well. There's probably the personal sentimental value of that, of painting that and spending so long on it, that there's an attachment to that model.
So you like both ends of the spectrum?
Yes,
yeah. Nice. What about you, Tom?
My favourite model has to be the Big Boss. In terms of, I think the pose is incredibly mean. I think it screams orcs. I think the musculature of the arms, the pacing of the little fun details around the model versus big flat panels where I can do my checker patterns and do my glyphs. I think that model has everything for me. And I think in terms of paint scheme specifically, it has to be the Weird Boy. I think the way that the eye has been rendered, the magic, the subtle freehand on the cloth and the weathering, the way the skin's been treated all over. I just think that is a incredible paint scheme.
The painting on the eye is absolutely phenomenal. I had to see a close-up, zoomed-in picture of the model to appreciate how good the painting was, because it's better than my eyesight can see at this point, which is pretty impressive.
It's one of the things that constantly impresses me over the years, when I've had a chance to really look at the work that the Eavy Metal team does is, obviously sometimes we have access to really super high-res photography of the models, and you keep zooming in trying to find where the highlights join and things.
We get lots of people asking if they've been photoshopped a lot of the time, and you're like, no, they really haven't. You can come and look at them in Warhammer World and kind of look at them up close in the cabinets. They really are that detailed.
We want people to really pay attention to the models and to zoom in and look at all of the details. So putting little things like that eye where you reward that level of attention is really important.
And also in your own collection, right? Like you might, obviously every orc boy you'll put attention into, but he is the centerpiece of that unit he joins, right? Like if you're going to put extra effort in somewhere, it's going to be on those character models, and there's some lovely ones in this set.
So one of the things I'm really pleased that I've been allowed to do over the last couple of years is not only attend but present the awards at Golden Demon competitions. And I love looking at models now when I see them sort of revealed for the first time and trying to work out like how they might appear in Golden Demon competitions in the future. Obviously, as elite painters, I guess you look at that sort of thing too. I'd be interested in what you think in the Armageddon set might make for a cool Golden Demon entry.
There's the obvious answers in terms of the suite of characters that we have on show.
Right.
The poses, the character that they have within themselves, and the level of detail really lends themselves to that high level painting where you're paying attention to every minute little detail and looking to infuse that story and that narrative and that character. And even to the extent where there's pairs of the character models like the librarian and the weird boy
that's right.
that are specifically designed to stand alongside each other. So for a category such as Duel or Diorama, they fit in perfectly. And I think on top of that as well, something that I've been really enjoying seeing at Golden Demons recently is slightly more vignette style entries. And I think the whole box in a way lends itself to that, where there's so many cool poses and miniatures full of character that you can pair up. Off the top of my head, I think the Gretchen and the Big Boss, I could see that as a little scene where he's, leading the charge and they're running on.
He's impish grots all around him.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be cool.
I think it kind of just to follow what you're saying, like the whole box is designed generally with like this left and right side. So there's a lot of places for you to pick. Like you could just do an intercessor and an orc boy having a fight like in the middle of Armageddon, or you could do like two squads. Like they're all designed like that and you can interact with them in that way. But I also like the idea of, like you said, of some of the slightly fun pairings of like having a couple of grots fighting the knife guy from the intercessor squad and being swarmed by them, right? Playing with that narrative, I think could be cool.
So because I'm so much at the shallow end of like painting, I sort of enjoy the speculation. One of the things I think is interesting is obviously the squad and unit categories. And when you were talking about the fact that you really enjoyed the intercessors, because they've all got their unique character and identity and pose, I think it would make things easier. When you look at these entries, people are often taking a lot of time to sort of uniquely pose and make each one feel like an individual. And this set already does it. So it wouldn't surprise me to see intercessors from this, or maybe the orc boys around the knob doing the same sort of thing as well. Fascinating. I can't wait for, I guess, Golden Demon towards the end of the year. Might be a fun thing for me to look and see if I can spot anything.
So one of the things I notice about this set is that you've made quite extensive use of the decals and transfer sheets. Talk to me about how you've incorporated those into the miniatures and paint schemes.
We tend to use it in like a way you combine it with paint and the decal. So you can have it on its own. On the captain's knee pad, that gold skull is just a transfer off the sheet. But it's also then integrating into different ways. So the knee pad on the chaplain is a mixture of the blood droplets and then I freehanded the gold filigree around it. So, and then we also do a lot of stuff where we'll cut decals up. So like, I like the size of that skull, or I like this little blood drop here because it's the right scale to fit on this space, maybe on a gun or on a chainsword. And it's using it as like a toolbox is how we tend to approach using transfers.
Absolutely, yeah. Similar with the orc side, it's very much a toolbox to go alongside your freehand checkers and your freehand dags. You can use them in conjunction. You can have the symbols by themselves. I think ultimately using washes like Nuln Oil and Agrax Earthshade and chipping them up so that they feel coherent with the rest of the model is a really great way of implementing them.
So it's not something you necessarily I remember when I started painting, I always used to put those on last. That was the last thing you did. But you're saying incorporate them into the painting process, put some layers, put some glazes and washes and things over the top of them, and then you get to feel like it's not a detail that's been added last, it's part of the overall paint scheme.
Exactly, yeah.
Great.
Really cool. So, obviously, people at home will be looking at this collection and they'll be wondering how they're going to approach it. Do you have any like top tips, a thing that you'd recommend to somebody who's at any level of painting that you might have picked up that you can pass on?
I think for the Blood Angel side, it's definitely start as bright as you can with that red. Okay. I think we use like basically Evil Sun's Scarlet for the base coat with a little bit of Mephiston in. Really? Just so you get that max saturation from it. And then it looks like blood, right? That's kind of what we're trying to represent with this. So start really bright with it, and then just add like a few little crisp highlights here and there, because it's such a like 90% of that model. If that red is too desaturated or too dark, it doesn't have that same punch and grab your attention. Whereas starting super bright will have that effect.
What about the orcs?
On the orc side, it's about approaching the skin and the cloth and the straps in the right way, and finding the right lightness to make the models stand out, so that you actually get the contrast between those cloths and the skin. So I think finding the right it's a similar approach where you find the right green, you find those core colours that you want for the skin, and work off of that as a kind of anchor point, and then you can block in your armour colour and your leather colours around it. You want that skin to be on point as the orcs, and kind of build the rest around it.
Nice. And when you guys get your own copies of this box and you get to paint one of the models up yourself in your own colour schemes, have you got one in mind that you like the look of, and a colour scheme in mind that you're going to approach it with?
I think I've got to go for the war track. It's got to be in a Evil Sun's, of course, colour scheme.
Of course, because so it goes faster.
So it goes faster. I want it to go as fast as possible. And again, just like I think the red armour takes chipping so well. I think when you look at something like Wazdaka and you see how it's been implemented on that, riffing off of the amazing paint job that was done on that, I think this war track is where I want to go first.
Excellent. For yourself?
For me, again, it's probably just the intercessors. They've got my eye on the guy with the combat knife, which is such a cool dynamic pose.
Have you got a chapter in mind that you're going to paint him as?
Yeah, we did a couple of months ago now. We did a White Dwarf article on creating your own Space Marine chapter. A few of us in the team created, and I did a Keepers of the Chalice. They've got white armour with black shoulder pads and red helmet, so that white armour is like a perfect place where you can play with all the weathering and glazing, get the dirt in there, and I think setting that on Armageddon would be really cool.
That would be cool, yeah. I've already been busily painting mine in Dark Angel colours, but much faster and to a lower standard.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, guys. This is the Armageddon box set. You can get your hands on it very soon.